from ESPN, Tom Luginbill. Lugs, what's up, brother?
Guys, I am great, and I'm listening to your discussion now, and I've got to chime in here because in the 18 years that I've headed up our player evaluation efforts at ESPN, I've probably never been more criticized over Derrick Henry than any other player in the last 18 years. And we're talking about doing roughly 3,500 kids in a given class for 18 years. And Derrick Henry was the biggest statistical anomaly, the biggest outlier, the biggest unicorn ever in the history of running backs.
Creative player.
Because there's never been anybody like him. He doesn't look like a running back. He doesn't move like a running back. And outside of maybe a handful of programs, and I can say this now, but I couldn't say it then because I took too much criticism, nobody was recruiting him as a running back. They were going to move him to outside linebacker. They were going to move him to defensive end. And there were some programs, Alabama was one of them, that said, you know what? Let's try him at running back. Let's see what happens. All right. See how he plays out, because he was never like a super sudden guy, right? He is a long strider, builds up to momentum. And you just look at him, you're like, I don't know if this guy can play running back. I was wrong. A bunch of people were wrong. But it's easy to be wrong on a guy like that because he's in like a category of his own. It's not like you can go back and say, oh, I remember this 6'4", 260-pound running back. I remember this 6'4", 250-pound running back. There aren't any. Like, it doesn't happen. And by the way, guys, it hasn't happened since.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean,
name another one.
It's similar in baseball to Randy Johnson. I mean, you're 6'11", throwing 103 miles per hour. When you let that ball go, you are almost halfway down.
From the left side.
It's from the left side. Good luck hitting that. Best of luck to you. And most people didn't. But, Tom, I do think Derrick laterally is underrated a little bit. When you watch it, and we talk about
better.
He's gotten better. But when you're that big, moving side to side is so hard when you're that big. That's why when you look at linemen and things like that, people are like, oh, you ran a good 40. That's great. What's your shuttle? That's why I need to know what your shuttle is. How good are you going right and left? In football, it's not a straight line. Very rarely is there a straight line ever in football. It's angles and it's lateral movement. That's what separates the men from the boys. But also with the start bench cut, Tom, who would you start? Who would you bench and who would you cut between Derrick Henry, Earl Campbell, and Eddie George? Good luck.
I'd start Derrick Henry. I'd probably bench Earl Campbell, and I might have to cut our boy Eddie George.
And he was so good. That's the thing.
He was so good.
That was a good one.
I know.
That's
tough. But I also, you know what? When I think of those times too, like, I'm old enough to have not watched when I was alive, but seen enough of Earl Campbell.
Tom, you were there. Let's not be around this. You were 100% there.
I'm curious to know, in today's era where the athlete is so superior, such a superior specimen when it comes to training and all of the resources that those guys didn't have back then. Like, you try to look at Jim Brown, you try to look at Earl Campbell, like, what would they be if they had access to today's technological evolution?
Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, they're out there lifting bricks on rods in their garage. Imagine if you took them to one of these trainers out in California. It's like, listen, we're only going to use 1 foot and we're going to be on the beach for 6 hours. like imagine that. But Tom, I do want to jump, obviously, in a huge college football weekend, a couple of really big matchups. Saw you on the call the other night, did a really good job. Always enjoy seeing you calling games, and my bet hitting that game. It's always nice listening to people that actually know what they're talking about when I'm watching a game. But Tom, let's start with Alabama and LSU. I listed 3 things at the beginning of the show that I think LSU has to do. They have to play clean from a turnovers and penalties standpoint. Field position's huge as well. But not just that, obviously not blowing coverages and missing assignments, but they've almost got to pitch a perfect game. The second thing is Jaden Daniels continuing to work the ball to that deep third to keep Jordan Battle and those safety groups out of the box so they're able to run the ball and stay ahead of schedule. And in totality, the thing that they have to do the most, in my opinion, with the way their team's built, is they cannot get off to a poor start like they have in most of these games. If they get down 17-0 to Bama, it's going to look more like the Tennessee game, and they're going to get ran out of the gym. What is maybe one key in your mind if LSU is going to have a chance to win this game?
I love those 3. I would add a 4th, and that 4th is they need Alabama to help them. And Alabama this year has helped people. You know, they go into Knoxville and they commit 18 penalties. They're sloppy. They're undisciplined. Poor kicking game play. I think LSU is going to need a little bit of that because generally when you're trying to beat a football team that is more talented than you are, that is deeper than you are, you need to play really well, but you also need them to help you a little bit. And I actually think Alabama will play a clean football game. Alabama will show up and play well. I think the other thing as it relates to Jaden Daniels and him continuing to evolve in the passing game, his plays and the vast majority of the plays that he has made that have either kept a drive alive, avoided a negative play, have come with his legs and the ability to create second chances. But what he hasn't done a great job of, in my opinion, is while doing that, keeping his eyes downfield for that last second chance to get the ball out with his arm. When he commits to that run, it's probably going to be a positive play, but he's committed. And I'd like to see him keep his eyes downfield a little bit more, to your point, because what happens is unless you're in man coverage and your back's turned to the quarterback, if they've got eyes on the quarterback and he flushes or he takes the front door and it looks like he's going to run, there are going to be guys slipping loose because those people are going to come forward on Jaden Daniels. I think he could take some opportunities to hit the ball late through the air. And instead of making an 8 to 10 yard run, which is great, all of a sudden you get a guy loose and you completed a 40-yard pass. That's going to be big as well.
I used to tell our DBs all the time when it came to a scramble drill or a quarterback out of the pocket. Now, typically in a scramble drill, you're going to turn it into man and go try and lock somebody up. But if you have zone eyes on that quarterback, if eyes go down and ball goes down, eye go down. So if Jaden Daniels is able to bring that ball down and look like he's about to run with what they've shown all year, they're coming to hunt. Because Jaden can go for 70, and then all of a sudden you lollipop it over him. Nick Marshall used to do it all the time. He used to kill people doing it. I used to just, as a defensive guy, as an Auburn fan, I would love it. But as a defensive guy, I'm like, God, that just sucks. It's like a two-way go. It's like, what do you do? Like, it's tough.
Yeah. And that type of player has caused problems for Alabama
Very
during
true.
Nick Saban's entire tenure.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, Tom, Tennessee now ranked number 1.
Yeah.
Going to Athens, going to play in between the hedges. After they beat Alabama, it was sort of like that movie Django when he said, you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention, Is this Tennessee team legendary? I mean, do they have a chance to truly be great?
Depending on how they handle Tuesday night's results, because this thing's starting to shape up and look like they could be having an LSU 2019 where all of the stars align, everything falls into place, and you just have one of those years. But what's crazy, guys, is it is November 3rd. Is it November 3rd today? It's November 3rd today. This will only be the third road game Tennessee has played to this point. They've played 2 road games. 2, right?
Hit it on a good year.
So, right. So, again, things falling into place. The schedule works out. You get this bounce. You make a play here. You make a break there. But when I say handling Tuesday night, is a couple of things can happen when you're a team that hasn't been in this position before. You can get caught up in it, all right? And you can start to listen to everybody telling you how good you are. And you can start to buy in to the accolades and the hype and the exposure. Because right now what we have is we have 2 contrasting ends of the spectrum. We have Tennessee right here, and we have TCU. We had Sonny Dykes on College Football Live yesterday, and my comment to him was, this is the best thing that could ever happen to you. While everybody else is talking about Alabama and Clemson and Michigan and those teams being ranked ahead of you, you guys just get to keep chipping away with no pressure on you, with a chip on your shoulder, and continuing to prove yourself. What Tennessee has to now do is prove they were right? Prove all of the voters, prove the committee was right. And when you haven't been in that position before, that can be daunting when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old young people. I think it's what makes Nick Saban so good in his job is he gets kids to deal with people telling them they're really good and still playing to a high standard. We don't know that yet about Tennessee. I'm going to be very interested to see, do they get caught up in it or do they embrace it and just ride it out?
Yeah,
man, I'm so fired up for this.
I am too, and there's a big difference. There's a big difference between that first college football ranking coming out when Georgia and Tennessee have to play each other, and Ohio State, Michigan have to play each other.
Yes.
And if this was the one of the last college football rankings, that came out because TCU's strength of record is 3. But like Tom said, I mean, if I'm Coach Sonny Dykes, hell, I'm driving this chip on the shoulder all the way home. They don't respect us. They don't respect us. They think our conference sucks. They think we suck. They think we're just some finesse offensive team that's going to come out here and probably lose a game that they shouldn't. I mean, you talk about motivation. They got it for days.
Well, talking about that conference, Kansas State 48-0 over Oklahoma State. Tom, this game shocked me. I mean, it was the most shocking. I mean, Appalachian State beating Texas A&M. Okay, I called Georgia Southern going into Lincoln and beating Nebraska. This game blew me away, and now they host Texas at home. I mean, how great can this Kansas State truly be? Just Kansas State team.
Almost as good as Tulane. I got to be honest with you.
Both in the college football playoff ranking.
I mean, that says everything you need to know about college football this year.
Yes.
By the way, not to get off tangent, and I'll answer your question about Kansas State because I do think they're really good. But what's interesting about that is Tulane beats Kansas State in Manhattan. Kansas State beats Oklahoma State in Manhattan. Both of those teams are ranked far ahead of Tulane. If this was Cincinnati of last year, they came in with preseason hype and was already ranked, I promise you that wouldn't be the case. And that's one of the problems with the College Football Playoff Committee. They want the Group of Five darling, but only if it's served up on a platter for them. They don't want that team that wasn't receiving accolades in August. That team's not good enough, right? And it's frustrating because you're looking at what is Kansas State 13, I think?
Kansas State's 13.
13, right. And then what's Tulane, 17?
19, I think, right?
19, okay. And
19,
Oklahoma State is 16 or 17. So you're sitting there kind of scratching your head going, that one's interesting. Now, back to Kansas State. I can't believe that game either, guys, because I was just coming off the Texas-Oklahoma State game where Oklahoma State comes back down 14 and just plays lights out. I never, ever would have seen this coming from Oklahoma State, but it doesn't surprise me because this is what Chris Kleiman coached teams do, right? And by the way, I don't think it's a coincidence that Kansas State's playing better football with Will Howard, because at the end of the day, and I don't want to knock Adrian Martinez, better thrower, and Adrian Martinez has shown us over the course of 4 years what he is. He's streaky, he's inconsistent, he shows flashes here and then he disappears there. He's dealt with injury a lot his entire career. So they really, right now, Kansas State's got more stability with Will Howard than they have with Adrian Martinez.
I think it's a really good point. I think what we were talking about earlier is another reason why we shouldn't have preseason polls. Their first poll should not come out until week 3. I'm a firm believer. Right. It's good for us. It's great for us to talk about, and it's great banter. But I do think when they rank those guys early, and I know it's different between the college football playoff ranking and the AP poll, I get that. But it's optics. It's PR. You're seeing those top teams up there. So therefore, in your mind, they should be there.
Well, and I'm sitting there, I'm hearing all this criticism of LSU at 10. All right. My pushback on that is, okay, who would you put at 10? Ole Miss is at 11. LSU just beat them. All right. UCLA has a tough loss on the road to Oregon. But if you looked at the first 3 weeks of their schedule and the Pac-12 schedule to this point, you can't put UCLA above LSU. So those people that are criticizing where LSU's at 10, tell me who you'd put there.
Yeah, and the great part, Tom, guess what? You play Bama this weekend.
Absolutely.
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, Blaine, what do we got?
All right, Luke's first thing, man, that hat is dope.
It is dope.
I just want to let you know that. Let's go to M. Hutton. He wants to know questions for Tom. If TCU, Clemson, and the Big Ten champ are all undefeated conference champs, does one of those teams get passed in the Final Four for a non-conference champ and an SEC team?
I don't think so. That is one point that I think would make things easy on the committee, because it's always easy to go and just point to a team with the 0 next to the hyphen and conference champ next to their name. Because how do you debate that, right? How do you argue against that? You might think the other team's a better team, and you know what? They probably are. Yeah. They may very well be. But when you're undefeated and you've won your Power 5 conference, that's a very, very difficult argument to make.
All right, I love it. Let's go to Connor Weaver, #Ask Tom. He wants to know, will BYU ever be able to compete when they join the Big 12? And what do they need to do to get back on track?
Well, that's a great question. Number one, I had them a few weeks ago. They're not running the football anywhere near the level that they've run
We're stopping
under
the run.
Kalani Sitake. That's right. We're stopping the run. They've been sloppy. They've had turnover issues. Jaron Hall's been banged up. They've had a variety of bad things happen to them. You know, they've been a football team, and you've got to understand with their depth and their age and how many old guys they're playing with, generally when bad things happen to them, they can kind of weather the storm because they're playing with such depth and 23, 24-year-olds that have been around, that have redshirted. So that helps them, and it helps them particularly at the Group of 5 level. It doesn't help you as much at the Power 5 level. And do I think that they can compete in the Big 12? Absolutely, I do. But it's not going to happen overnight. And people will say, well, what do you mean by that? I say, well, go look at TCU and Utah and look at their record at the Group of 5 level the last 3 years that they were at the Group of 5. TCU is 36-3. Utah was 33-6. Look at their first 2 years in the Big 12 and the Pac-12 respectively. They're under 500 because it is a leap. It is a jump in terms of depth, athleticism, speed, the caliber of player that you need to compete in every week. So my point is, yes, I think they can compete. Is it going to happen overnight? I don't think so.
Well, heck, you have some teams. I was talking about this last night. I think I got some Ole Miss fans pissed off, but it is what it is. I mean, you have some teams in the SEC that have never won the division. So, I mean, since they've been there. So let alone going in there and just starting off. I will say 2 teams that kind of marry each other from an attrition standpoint this year, BYU and Arkansas, and they just happened to play each other a couple weeks ago. I thought that was kind of ironic. But Tom, great stuff, man. Where are you calling this weekend? Always love having you on and talking ball with you. What game are you calling this weekend?
We got a strange one. We don't usually get this. We got Pac-12 After Dark, Cal at USC. Going to get to see what that USC offense looks like and maybe an improved defense. They need it to be. And then next week, I got another midweek action game, Ohio at Miami, Ohio. So 3 games in about 8 days. So I'm grinding it out, boys.
Don't you just love going to Miami this time of year?
I will say this, though, man. Have you ever been there? That campus is gorgeous.
I've never seen it. We coached at Kent State. I've been at Akron. We played Bowling Green in the Camellia Bowl, but I've never been to Miami, Ohio.
Yeah, prettiest campus in the MAC. Really nice.
Wow. That's surprising. But it's not surprising when you come on here and ball, Tom. You do it every time. Appreciate you, my brother. Enjoy
Thanks,
that.
Guys. Have a good one.
Keep wearing that hat.
Hey, man.
Hey, guys. Hope you're enjoying the content that you're seeing. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell for notifications. We drop shows every day, content during the weekend. And remember, without you, there is no us. We really appreciate it.